Okay, we start.
He does it so well.
Hi everyone, can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay, I'm Maura Gibbons and I'm really excited because I actually am now the president of our Lower Swatara Historical Society. Sorry, Ruth.
Just stick it
I have a few announcements that I wanted to make for everyone before we get started, and then we'll hear Ruth. I wrote them down, so bear with me. So upcoming events that we have going on, we have October 15th, we have 2 events. We're actually doing a trash collection. We've adopted a highway. So it will be the Fulling Mill Road and Oberlin Road where the connection happens, and we'll be cleaning up that highway on 10/15. Additionally, on that same day, we'll also have Stoner Cemetery. We'll be doing cleanup there. So please volunteer, come out and help us for these 2 great projects that we have slated in October. The September meeting is actually going to be canceled. So we will not be having a September meeting due to just some illness from folks, and we thought it'd be better to cancel the session. And then, of course, we have elections coming up. So elections are coming in November. And if you want to nominate any board member or officer, please see one of us. And we will have them in the nomination process. And they'll be a part of the fabulous team, hopefully, if they get voted in. Now I will go through Ruth Shireman, who is here to talk to us today about the Star Barn, I believe. No.
Old Reliance and
I'm
Walnut
still learning.
Hill.
Old Reliance
And Walnut Hill.
and Walnut Hill. I've been looking at some of these pictures. They are amazing. So please put your hands together for Ruth. Ruth actually was born and raised in West Virginia, and she has her heart in West Virginia. She attended Harrisburg Hospital School of Nursing and started working there after her graduation. She worked in newborn intensive care unit, actually since its inception until her retirement. Ruth also became interested in genealogy because she was married to Richard L. Shireman Jr. They traveled to courthouses from Virginia to PA before information was available on computers. And Ruth was the historian for St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Middletown for 14 years. And we sort of did a rough estimate. She's been here for about 40 years. And she was one of the founding members of the Lower Swatara Township Historic Preservation Society and continues to be a senior advisor for us. So please put your hands together now. Give a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I've never been introduced before, so that was a treat. Yeah. Well, I wanted to start out with, it's for Walnut Hill Farm. And I wanted to go back because to know Walnut Hill Farm, you have to go back to Reliance, Old Reliance. So we're going to backtrack a little bit. But anyway, when she described West Virginia, my heart is if John Denver ever sings that song, Country Roads, I'm up there like this. I'm one of those. But I was accepted at different places. I was born and raised in West Virginia. But I was accepted at the beginning in Medical College of Virginia and Polyclinic Hospital in Harrisburg. And being not away from home much, Richmond seemed too far away. So I chose Harrisburg. Because at that time, well, in, let's see, 64, 60s, 64, girls, at least down there, they only had about 3 choices of what they wanted to do. So it was either a secretary, a teacher, or get married. And I didn't want any of those, not at that time. So I decided, I've always liked nursing. I would bring things home to our house when I was a kid. I'd bring home hurt birds, hurt everything. You know, I had a baby, you know, it's funny, most of the kids then would have this dress-up dolls, but I wanted a baby doll because that was going to take care of it. So anyway, that's where I got started. Our high school class had 46 people in it, and we lost quite a few because that was when the Vietnam War was on. We lost some guys there. And the thing of it is how small it is. We had just a little over 300 kids in the whole junior high and high school. So, and that was 7 to 12 grades. Let's see, and I know I went down to pick out Harrisburg. So I was there at the nursing school for 3 years. So I have to tell you something too, a little bit. Now I'm from a town in West Virginia where we actually lived out of town, but they didn't get a stoplight for, I don't know when, they don't have one now, but it was always a 4-way stop. So it was kind of little, you know. So when I came up here to big Harrisburg, I mean, that was big, especially, you know, and when I had, my class was made up of like 30-some, no, 50-some people. But anyway, I have to tell you that when I came up here for the first time, and I was in Brady Hall, you know, in training, and I wanted to go downtown. You know, now downtown to me was not like Chestnut Street and 2nd Street in Harrisburg. But I was going to go. I was going to be real brave. So I went out and I started out across Chestnut Street and walking, and I waved to everybody. You know, that's what we did. And then the light said, "Don't walk." And truthfully, I was scared to death. I honestly didn't know whether you're supposed to stop and go back or run across or what. But that was my first encounter with "don't walk." So I decided just to keep on going. I think I ran. I could run then. I think I ran a little bit. So, but yeah, I was introduced to, first let me get, excuse me, I should put my finger here. But, so I stayed and was hired at Harrisburg Hospital after the 3 years training, which was a good training. It was a hospital training, you know, and I got to see a lot of things. But in 1969 was the beginning of the so-called preemie room. Is what I wanted to get in because these babies are small. And it was very, when I think back after being in NICU now for so many years, it was kind of primitive, really. We would start taking care of babies instead of respirators. They wanted to have maybe heard of CPAP. Well, we had a resident that was there, and he wanted to start CPAP, so we got tubing from everywhere, and he made up this equipment to use as CPAP for these kids. So I was really impressed. So I've seen a lot of things since then, and they really have changed a lot. So I loved it so much, I stayed there until I retired. I did some stints in newborn nursery when they needed me and stuff. But I stayed there until I retired. Now, I got introduced to genealogy because I had no clue. You know, I had cousins and a grandma and a grandpa, but that's about it. Until I met my future mother-in-law, Betty Shireman, which you know is Mary Elizabeth, but it was Betty. And the very first time I was there with Rick, I'll mention Rick as my husband, it was Richard L. And she handed me a genealogy book of the Allmans. And, you know, as if I was really kind of floored, I thought, I looked at it. And she asked me if I belonged to the DAR, and I had to think a while what the DAR was. And I said, I don't think so. And I was trying to tease her. And I said they probably were all English and they fought for the, you know, against the Americans. Shit like that. But now I know. Now I'd love to, I shouldn't say that, but now I can tell Betty that I've looked, now that I've been into genealogy, I to be in the DAR several times, but I just don't have the desire. But 3 times over what she had, so. I would get started then. But I even had my mother's side came in, were English. They did come in into St. Mary's down in Maryland in the 1600s. So I beat that. And plus, my mother's side was the down in Germanna, down in Virginia, at the Rappahannock River. Her side came over from Germany in 1717, and so I got another one that, I'm back there pretty far. But one thing I wanted to mention is that there's a saying I wrote down, and I really like it. We all should remember it. Realize that family history is perishable. The younger ones, just remember that, because I'm so sorry I didn't ask more questions, and they're gone now. It disappears with time. Memories fade and loved ones pass on. Remember that when a family member passes away, they take with them a library of memories, and that may never have been heard. So it's once you get in genealogy, you find out, and I've just basically done all I can from my side. Okay, now we're going to talk about Walnut Hill Farm. Keep forgetting, sorry. And but first, I was telling Nancy, I said we have to start with reliance, because that's where it all began. And excuse me for, I've cut this back, so you should be good. In 1753, in 1753, 3 brothers from Germany, from Hamburg, Germany, came and sailed out of Cowes, England, and came to Philadelphia in 1753. You don't have to remember that. On the ship Lethley. Okay. They took an oath of allegiance to the government on their arrival. Okay. Now we're gonna. The other game we're gonna play is, remember Abbott and Costello? Who's on first? That's how I felt when I was doing this. Who's on first? The first brother, the oldest one, was John Christian Alleman. And it says, we couldn't find a name for his wife, but they did have 5 children, so she was there somewhere. But the oldest son that they had was Conrad. Now this is in the 1738 and the 1792. And if you know anything about Reliance, Conrad was supposedly built over Reliance, or the Reliance Farm building. The thing of it is, he would have been 50 years old when he did that, and his father would have been 74. So they did have some brothers and cousins somewhere along the line. I'm sure he didn't build the whole thing by himself. He was 50 years old in the 1700s is a little, that's old. So now I have what I want to show you. Now you'll have to see this. You'll have to see this up here. Anyway, my great-grandfather, my side, was a stonemason. And when you look at Old Reliance, that stone, and how they would have put blocks up and moved them, he left me a picture that's showing how it was done. So what they basically did, they had a team of horses, these did. And, well, this is my great-grandfather. And they would have ramps, make wooden ramps, and have the block at one end and have the horses pull at the other end and roll them, or I don't know whether they could have rolled them, but pulled them up to the second floor or to the first floor. And as you can tell in this picture, it took a village. That's why I thought there has to be more people than just Conrad that's building this. But that's, you may look at this when you come up. It's just mine. It's just, I was so glad to find that. Okay. So we did hit John Christian Alleman had, the oldest son was Conrad. who built Reliance, and that was in 1788. He would have been 50 years old. He did that and showed the picture. Okay. Now, where is she? Picture number 2. That's it. Oh boy. And the reason why I say oh boy, I've been in talks down at the church and everything, but I've always wanted to use a laser. And we got one for our year-old puppy, and I didn't. I thought I can use this. Oh wait, let me see if I can. Oh, that's a star. But anyway, that's not the one I wanted. I'll show you. I have it. Of course, it's okay. You're all right. Anyway, there's a happy face. I had it. There it is. So I thought, that's great. I'm going to use that. But I'm not. I'll let you go on that one. In the 1980, when my husband and I were there, and my father-in-law, Richard Shireman, Sr., this was Reliance. This was the Reliance farmhouse. Now this is 1980. And as you see, there is a dirt road. And I remember walking, my father-in-law showed us, this came off of Ebenezer before those power lines. And it did curve around. So we would take walks up there. And, but that's the way that it looked in there. And there was some buildings back here. Bear with me. And there were some buildings back here. But this was all dirt. This is way before the development. You can go to that next one. This is the front of the house. This is supposed to be the front of the house. The other picture was really the back of the house. And these, in 1788, these weren't here, this addition. There is where the door is to go down to the basement, where there was meat hung and everything there. And then this is the way the doors were. So there was a shed, I'm not sure what that was, and it had a wooden fence around it. Okay, you can go next. And this is the last picture, I think, anybody has of the old Reliance farm. This was done in 1980, and in 1981 it was blown over by a windstorm. So I'm glad I have these pictures, and I'm glad I took a walk in the 1980s just to see. Now let's see where I am here. Okay. So that's just Reliance. We all know where Reliance is, where it is. But the second brother, I remember there's 3. The second brother was John Frederick Christian Alleman. And he married a Rachel. And they had 6 children. Their third son was Henry Alleman. Now, this is what I'd say we're going to play who's on first and who's on second. Because I was looking up, and there's only about 3 Christians in the genealogy book down this line, and about 4 Henrys. So their second son was Henry. Now Henry was the one, he was born in 1759, and he died in 1829. Now this is Conrad's brother, so they're still together. But Henry had died a year after Reliance was built. They had 10 children, and all of them were born at Reliance. Henry was granted 1,400 acres of Alleman land. He was very prosperous. If you look up anything, he was very prosperous, and he was a distiller. So they knew where to go when they wanted something. He bred cattle and horses, sold hay, grain, and fruit, and he and his family, which I found out being at St. Peter's Church. That whole family has been instrumental in building St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Middletown, the old church, the old kirk. So they were all Lutherans and all stayed there. And we have 5. Yeah, oh, here, before me. So anyway, this, I have to turn. Yeah, this is the Ottoman tombstone. And this is where Juliana Long and Henry, they evidently owned all that land. 1,400 acres. I have no clue, and I have no way of finding out which is, where it was exactly. But if you go out past, on Longview Drive, you go past 441, and you're heading toward Little Hollywood, this is only a couple hundred feet from 441, and you'll see it on the curve. And their son was Leonard. He died early, so that's why Leonard's name is there. Okay, number 6. This, and I know I was probably thinking people would ask how come there's almonds out there close to Straits? Well, like I said, they owned, I don't know how much land. I know 1,400 acres. I have no idea where that was or how it was sprawled out. But there's an old map that I had that shows that Straits places, the 2 brick farmhouses, were originally Alleman. And that's why the Alleman cemetery is there. And that was usually just cousins and nephews. And it wasn't directly associated with Henry or Juliana Long. Let's see, tombstone. That's straight. Sorry, I have to keep going. And so now Henry and Juliana, their 3rd son was Michael. And he was born in 1794 and he died in 1868. And they took over Reliance. And Michael married Catherine Rudy at the time. They had 6 children, 3 sons and 3 daughters. And, oh, she's too fast for me. So anyway, let me see if I can get the thing. This is the family. This was taken down at Reliance. And I have it, I can, not that you really want to know, but this is Henry. And that's his wife. Salome Seltzer. And these are all his children. You want to remember this one. This was Helen Hassler. You can remember her name because she's down the way and closer to where we are now. Her name will come up. This is my husband's grandfather right there. And that's just, if you want to know, there's Catherine, Martin Luther again. See, we had another Martin Luther. A Salome and an Ira Faber. And she had these dates. You can't see them on here, but I wrote them down. This poor woman, she looks pretty good. She looks pretty good. She had a child every 1 or 2 years, which she seems happy. So I guess that's all. But this was taken down at Old Reliance, and that's an old grape arbor in the back that was there at that time. So some of the ones we're going to talk about will be Ira Faber and what's the other? And Helen Hassler, and I'll explain those later what they are. Now, Michael's son Henry, this is Salome, this is Michael's son. He took over Reliance. They had 14 children. That's why I said she looked, pretty good for 14 children. But Henry married Salome Seltzer. They had 14. Henry is the one that took over Old Reliance. And he was one of the ones that was extremely prosperous. He bred horses. He had a Percheron stallion that he used for stud that was just praised. I had some of the papers, and he was just praised throughout the country. But he sold horses and food to the Union Army. So he really did well for himself. He had several orchards, and he had rows of brambles, and he had so much fruit and so many, wheat and oats and everything that you could have. It was really prosperous farm. And actually, I'm going to throw this in because this is about the last time that Reliance was farmed for the thing. Now, I want to read Michael. This was Henry's father, Michael. He died, of course we all do, but he left a will, and this is the only way that I found out where Walnut Hill came from. I had never knew until I came across this. I don't even remember when I came across it, but it was the last will and testament of Michael Alleman, and he died in 1868. And in the name of God, amen. It says, I, Michael Alleman of Lower Swatara Township, in the state of Pennsylvania, farmer being of tolerable health and sound mind, memory, and understanding, but considering the uncertainty of this transitory life, do make and publish the will and testament. And first is my will and my order that I pay his debts, which was not unusual. That's what they would do in the will. Now, second, says, I dispose of the land as follows. Second, I give and bequeath to my son, Henry. Now, Henry's at Reliance. Okay? That part of the farm where he now resides, which was Reliance. And he was to those on the old buildings. And he was supposed to pass that on to his heirs forever for the sum of $5,000